Hello folks, and welcome to the first development update for Blitz TCG. This is my first development update of all time, so fingers crossed things go well. I'm going to go ahead and get right into it. For the sake of time, the videos have been running a little long, and I want to trim them back a bit. So on the screen here, you're looking at the Unity game engine. One of the first things I'm going to do, just to prove to you that we're starting from a fresh version of the game, is go into regedit and delete out the entire Blitz TCG file. And so what this is going to do is truly reset us back to the baseline, so this would be like a new user loading the game for the first time. The other thing I'm going to do is actually build a version of the game right in front of you. You can see that it's going to be basically as clean as a build as we could demo in a test environment. So I'm going to go ahead and just select a random folder here, saving it to the music folder. Unity is now building all the files and whatnot necessary to run the game. So now, in that music folder that I selected, you see the delivered Unity files that we need to have on the computer to be able to play the game. Also want to mention that in the description below, I'm going to link out to you a Windows 64 build and a Mac build. If you want to play around with any of the stuff I show you today, you're welcome to do it. It will all work, and you can get a feel for sort of the responsiveness of the game at this point. So we'll go ahead and open up the .exe file. Unity's little intro there will load. It'll start in full screen. We'll be taken to the login menu. For today, I went ahead and made us a dummy email account where we can sign up from scratch as well. So let's go ahead and create an account here. One of the first things I'll mention is that there are some checks within the registration menu, just the standard stuff, you know, looking for valid emails, looking for valid username. So for example, if your username is over a certain amount, you know, pretty simple stuff, but necessary if you're trying to create a multiplayer game. You have to put some checks in place. So we'll do blitztesting@aol.com. I'll put in a password. If the passwords don't match or you don't have a symbol and they don't meet the strength requirements, you will get a warning for that too. But I know what those requirements are, so I went ahead and entered in a password that matched those requirements. Now you see you're taken back to the login screen. Verification email has been sent. So I'm going to open up now my AOL account. This will probably go to your spam folder for right now. We'll look at fixing that at some point. And you'll see something that looks like this in your email inbox. All right, so I fast forwarded through that for you to save you some of the grief with me figuring out how to use AOL. But now that the message is no longer considered spam, we can click this, and you'll see here that the email has been verified. You can now sign in with your new account. Now, all of this is customizable. Even the email you get from Firebase, which is the authentication platform that I'm integrating with to develop the game, all this is customizable. So at some point, you know, we'll take a look at customizing that. But that's all well and dandy. Things are great. We've been verified. So now let's come in here and we'll actually try to sign in for the first time. We'll click remember email and then we'll click login. And upon first login, you are brought to, of course, the main menu. Now right away, there's a few things to point out. The bells and whistles of clicking buttons and whatnot, like having them react to what you're clicking, has not been programmed in yet. Frankly, in Unity, doing all that is pretty easy, so it's really not a concern. At this point, getting to the point of having a playable alpha is the #1 priority. So let's take a look at a few things. Number one, we see some default profile image come in, as well as the username I entered before. So usernames are synced up with whatever account you create. If we wanted to change the PFP, so your profile picture, you could click your account up there, click change PFP, and then you get this window that pops up that says, hey, you know, if you want to change your PFP, just enter in some direct link. So we will try to change our PFP to the Ergo logo. So if we go to our web browser here, do Control-Shift-I, let's click the logo first, and then Control-Shift-C. We can actually find the source image of the Ergo logo. So then we can click into that, and it links us actually to that source image. And so any direct image should work for this as long as it is a .jpeg or .png file. So I copied that, I pasted it, I press enter, and you can see here now my logo has been updated with Ergo's logo. So that's great. And we'll take a look at and prove that this stays saved between various sessions. The other big bit of development here is the settings menu, and although this seems trivial, and in some ways it can be, making it a little more fancy than what is sometimes available to you is a bit harder. So some of the things that I've been working on are dynamic resolutions for the first time you run the game. So you can see here that it identified my screen resolution for me as soon as I ran the game. It started in full screen and it selected the resolution of the monitor that the game opened on. So that's the first pretty nifty thing. If I come in here and I downscale my resolution, you can see the screen quality. Maybe I'll pick a more drastic one. The screen quality adjusts as appropriate. We'll bring it back to 1440p though. The quality here just simply affects anti-aliasing, and for now it doesn't really mean too much, but eventually it will. We'll set it to off for now just for the sake of demoing some stuff. You can disable full screen, and if you were to disable full screen and make the screen smaller, it reacts appropriately. We'll bring it back to full screen. And then tooltips, of course, are these little pop-ups that you get when hovering over some of your active menu options. But some folks don't really like tooltips, including myself, so I wanted to make sure that those were disableable. You can also adjust your volume. So let's turn down the music volume here pretty dramatically. And these are, dependent. Oh, I'm gonna have to edit that out because I just blew up my own eardrums. But you can adjust the music volume, as you best see fit. Let's turn it down a bit. Maybe something like that. Effects right now aren't really in place, but technically this will work just fine when they are in place. So that's great. Excellent. Tooltips are disabled. If I clicked into the skirmish menu here, you can see we just have a couple of placeholders in here for now because we haven't developed those yet. So this is great. So everything looks good. So now let's prove that our settings here persist through gameplay reopenings, and also that our user account is actually connected to some online database. So if I exit out the game client entirely, we go back into our .exe file, I would hope and expect that everything that we've changed since we originally opened the game has stayed the way that it was. So the first thing that we want to check is, of course, that we remembered who we were, and you can see that the last logged in email there pops up on the screen. If I log in again, we see that the PFP for this user correctly loads and populates. Tooltips are still disabled. And then if I come into the menu here, we see all of my sound settings from before, as well as the resolution, quality, and whatnot are exactly how they were when I set them. So one of the things that I also want to program in is a reset button. Sometimes folks muck up their graphic settings so much they don't know how to fix them, or something might happen with certain desktop resolutions, who really knows. So there is a reset function that'll bring it back to exactly the way that it was before you change any settings. And so once you press that button, it's already back. We'll change our sound settings back to normal too. And now you see tooltips are back on. Everything looks great. Excellent. So we'll exit out of that. And at this point, really, that brings me through the speedy demo that I want to show. Next steps are creating the deck builder. So if we take a look, maybe let's play around in Unity a bit. We'll go check out the deck builder. So the deck builder scene here is where users are going to be able to create their decks. And so I just have a few placeholders now for what the visuals will look like for that. And then, after we have the deck builder situated and sorted out, we will, of course, move into Skirmish, which is the online matchmaking menu. So from here, you'll be able to select one of your pre-made decks and then click play. The matchmaking system will start, and it'll try to match you with another player also actively seeking a match. So those are the next big steps development-wise. For now, most of the game data is going to be saved locally because the real goal, the real, and I truly mean this, the real goal here is to get to a playable state enough to ensure that the cards are relatively balanced before we start minting them. Because one of the worst things you can do, of course, is to mint cards and then have to deprecate those cards from something like the competitive game mode, because they are just so unbalanced that it ruins the game for everybody. So that's, of course, one of the risks with designing a video game, especially an online video game, and trying to connect it to something like an NFT, is that game balance could be hindered if you don't do it right. So really need to take our time to make sure that things are balanced as best they can be before initial release. And then eventually, with the future Blitz tokens, we hope to enact sort of a governance system to card balance. So one of the visions I have in my head is that a player who is actively involved in the game, they have a lot of cards, they like the game, so on and so forth, they're going to have a say in what balance changes actually happen. So for example, if a card really is overpowered and everybody hates it, then the power will be in the player's hands to then approve certain balance changes. And so what this does is, one, make it fair to the players, and of course, our investors and other folks who maybe aren't playing the game will also have some sort of say in the matter as well. But that governance aspect of cryptocurrency is really what I think brings a novel experience to digital asset ownership. And one of the beautiful things is that we can build a more engaging community with those types of technologies that is really unheard of and unseen in today's day and age. So anyways, I could keep rambling about that for a while, but I'll stop myself here. Hopefully you enjoyed a brief look at the development conducted so far. If you want to play around with the current build, links in the description. Would love for you to find bugs and message me on Discord about them. Thank you, folks.